podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to season 2 of Strange New World. We are back. The show is back, and it is amazing. Great starter. Season 1 is called The Broken Circle, and the Enterprise receives a distress call from La'an that compels Spock to do what he never does and disobey orders and take the USS Enterprise to a not so safe part of space. All the while, Captain Pike is off ship trying to save his number one. This episode was action packed. I liked it, but let's get into it a little bit more. Moneca, what were your initial reactions?
I like it because I'm sensing a season arc and I'm sensing a longer story and a lot of drama. So there's a lot of different ways that this season can go based on the season 2 premiere. First of all, there's a new intro with like a new typeface, new graphics, lots of bold red color.
The new intro was really nice as well. I loved this first episode.
Okay, note everyone that we both like this one.
Yes, but for different reasons. But yes, we both like this episode. So the episode opens up with a captain's log. And in this one, if you are not listening to it like intently, you may miss something that, Captain Pike says. And I missed it the first time around, but I caught it the second time when he makes a point of saying that he thinks that the higher ups are a little bit more tense than they should be with something's going on that he's not aware of, which is a spoiler for later on for the very end of this episode, which sort of makes why everything happened, quote unquote, okay and quote unquote forgivable, and why some people are not quote unquote remanded for their vast overuse of their power. But Captain Pike, the loyal Boy Scout that he is, refuses to leave a man behind, even if that person is like, hey, yo, leave me behind, because I lied on the forum. Like, I literally have no leg to stand on because I lied from the beginning. And that is number one's argument to Pike, and Pike refuses to believe that. And he is now on a mission to go find a lawyer who will represent her. What did you think of the opening scene in the monologue?
Oh, I think that whenever Pike shares that star date, that helps to give some perspective of where they are in the timeline, of course. And it's really foreshadowing what's to come, because Spock is also a good Boy Scout. He just may not have been a formal Boy Scout, but he's the same way. He's going to help save some member of the crew that was in distress. And Pike is on that. He's just stepping away on shore leave to do that. I do want to say one thing, that Paramount changed this episode. And so I watched this episode a few days ago, and there's a little bit more that they then took out about when Pike, he goes on a side quest. And so they took that out, and I don't know why. And I didn't realize that until I rewatched it today. I was like, where did that go? So
I never saw that.
They're going to add it in the next episode or episode after that, because we're going to have more about number one's trial. But I do want to let the listeners know that you may want to rewatch the episode because it changed.
Or if you were like me and waited till the day before the recording to make sure it was fresh in your head, you never saw that scene. So I have no idea what she's talking about.
And maybe I shouldn't share more, because I guess they edited it for a reason.
Interesting. Well, you heard it here first, maybe or maybe not. That there's a scene missing from Paramount from this episode. Interesting. Learn something new every day, people. But moving on to Spock, the Spock of the episode. Spock is experiencing some stress because he did what Vulcans don't normally do. He let out his emotion. He broke the block so he could fight the Gorn. And he's now trying to figure out how to handle it. And I love how Dr. Mbenga is like, you could just learn to manage it like humans. He's like, I would prefer not to. I would prefer not to have them. And we see that he starts to play music to help calm his stress. And then a certain someone in a certain Nurse Chapel walks in the room, and his stress levels elevate. And Dr. Mbenga notices it, and he's like, oh, I peep what's going on between you two, even if you don't realize it. And Spock does the most obvious thing. He walks out the room. He's like, I got to go. I have
In
to
the
go.
opposite direction.
Like, seriously, dude? Seriously, could you be more obvious? And then we also get to see how protective the rest of the Enterprise crew is, and the new ensign, who I'm liking the attitude and the sureness we're getting of our new ensign Uhura. Like, I'm loving the way she's acting. But we get to see how Ortega's and Mitchell's and Uhura are very protective of where they sit and of their comms, and how they're like basically telling Starfleet, back up off our ship. We know the reason things are the way they are. This is our ship. Standard don't work here. What did you think of those two scenes?
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to customize your work environment, and they just did that. The ship was docked for repairs and upgrades. It doesn't mean you have to change someone's work environment. So yeah, stand off, stay here. It's okay. we got this. They are more confident, as you stated, and they were able to communicate that.
And so that is basically all of like the opener that we get for this episode of setting the stage for what's to happen. Because as Uhura is basically fighting with the communications person about the upgrade, she receives a message. She goes tell Spock that, hey, La'an's in trouble. We need to go get her from this planet that's also both ruled by Klingons and the Federation. 30 days on, 30 days off. It's like this whole like joint custody of the child type situation. Which was very confusing the first time I heard it, and then I sort of went over my head, and the second time I heard it, I was like, wait, that makes literally like no sense, but whatever, okay. I guess the child is happy, the planet, whatever. And we see that La'an is requesting help from the planet with the little girl whose name is escaping me. Orania,
Yes.
Oriana. Sorry if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly. That they find her parents and they're sick, but she notices that there is like a little underground resistance happening between both Federation and Klingon members. And so Starfleet does what Spock does, what Starfleet does best: breaks the rules and goes. They get out of space dock with a side story that we'll be discussing as we do our like full in-depth discussion of this episode, of a new character who I'm really liking, and I hope you like her too, of basically going there to save her. They find out that there's this whole resistance happening. They're trying to save them. Dr. Mbega and both Nurse Chapel get abducted for help, but not so necessarily help. And they notice that they built an entire starship in the middle of this planet to like replicate a Starfleet ship. And we see Spock has to blow up the ship knowing two people of his own crew is still on there. And we get to see the visceral reaction of him doing the order of shoot it down, like fire the torpedoes. And we literally see like the tears in his eyes at the thought of killing these people. But Dr. Mbega and Nurse Chapel somehow survive in a way that I don't think is possible, which we'll still discuss a little bit more as well. And Spock also gets the Michael Burnham treatment where like he gets no repercussions, but we also learn there's a reason why he didn't get repercussions, because I think at this point Starfleet's like, hey, he stopped us from fighting a war on both fronts. And at the very last scene, we see a Gorn ship is identified on like their map. And so like that's basically the entire episode. But it leads to, we're not going to get in trouble because we don't want anyone else to look any deeper into this. That's like the air is giving about this episode. So let's discuss. What is your favorite moment? What is the thing you want to talk about first?
Okay, so let's dive in deeper. And when M'Benga and Spock talk about stress, M'Benga goes and gets the musical instrument, as you mentioned. And I just want to mention to all those that's new to Star Trek that he picked up a harp. And this is significant because in the original series, Spock plays the harp also to de-stress and connect with Uhura. And they sing, she sings and he plays that harp. And they have harmony together that way. And so just for some point of reference of why that's significant, I think it's really helping him to also see his more human side. And also for the crew to see that he's a softer side than just his full logical brain and actions. A lot of the times it doesn't make sense. It really helps soften his character. So there's that, and I think that also shows that Mabanga is more interested than just the medicine part. He's also interested in mental health, the wholeness of the individual, making himself outside of the medical sick bay. And I like that in his character. And his character really shined for me in this episode more so than any other episode in the first season, especially that Renaissance book episode that was supposed to be like his episode.
Girl, when I tell you my entire view of this man has changed in this episode,
okay, great.
I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, Doctor got some moves. He's like, these hands are healing, but I will break y'all if I need to. Like,
so I watched the Ready Room episode about this one, and the gentleman that plays Mabanga also has a martial arts background, a Brazilian martial arts background, and the director and the writers thought it'd be a great opportunity to integrate that. There's not a lot of hand-in-hand combat in the first season, and so they integrated it here, and I think you could tell that his kicks were high. I mean, his fighting, it was really good action scenes there. So hats off to him in that. What did you think about that action scenes with Mabanga and Chapel fighting off the Klingons?
So the Mabanga that we got to see in season 1 was a father trying not to lose his daughter. That is all we saw. And I was just like, dude, you're a doctor. Like, get yourself together. But this episode sort of gives a little hint that he has some post-traumatic stress from when he was stationed during the Klingon Wars years earlier. And it's also finally said that both he and Nurse Chapel were actually in the war, unlike the rest of the Enterprise crew. They actually served in it. And he made some mention of, like, I think there was so much blood, the like air turned red or something like that. The rain turned red. And it's like almost like he closed that side of him off and just to be the doctor. And as he's being on the ship fighting for his life and for Nurse Chapel's life, and possibly for the lives of so many more Starfleet people and like other innocent people, that he is reverting back mentally to that time to like do what needs to be done. Because when he was fighting that Klingon, he was not showing him any mercy. Nurse Chapel was like, hey, look, he can't talk if he's dead. He can't give us any information if he's dead. The Klingon even makes a point to say, hey, we know Starfleet doesn't torture. And Dr. Mbenga just keeps going on him. And so I feel like we're going to see more about this. It's very interesting that he was telling Spock how to manage his stress. And I think now he's going to have to find ways to manage this post-traumatic stress that he has, because he had to let it out to save themselves. And sometimes we've seen it with other characters. When you open that door, you can't always close it. There's a reason it was closed. And sometimes it's not as easy to close it the first time. But I'm going to be honest. This scene, I was like, oh, I like this doctor. I think I like this doctor. Okay.
Yes. And what started out to be a humanitarian mission, they were beaming down to just help out. I mean, they had their medical equipment, but I was thinking the whole time when they were trapped with the Klingons, where are your phasers? Shoot them.
So they didn't bring them. I don't think they did.
No,
because they were trying to stay undercover. But yeah, mini phasers, something, a defense shield. Give me something. One says, how many people were in this fraction? 1. 2, how many higher ups may have not known or known? Because how do you build an entire ship underground when the powers that be are changing every 30 days? How are you keeping this a secret? Because I'm assuming, and maybe they explained it, I might have missed it, that like when you're not in power, you're not on the planet. Because I would think that would still like have some tension. And then like also that led to the question, during the war, were you still trading off power? Like, how did that work during the war as well? So that whole argument sort of led to some questions I had deeper about this planet and then what they were able to do. One, during, I guess they built it during peacetime, but still, like, how was this planet ever under two different rules during war times?
Because I was thinking about the dilithium, all the resources they would have to bring in to build that ship, and maybe they took pieces of other ships that from the Klingon War, and they like were trying to put them together, because it had some of the equipment that M'Benga and Chapel needed for that ejection, and they knew where to go. And she knew how to close the door, so it was wired the same way. There's certain things that were in place, so it leads me to believe like maybe they like took some other ships and then made like and put them together.
So before we get into a little bit more of that triangle we were talking about that may or may not be happening, and some other worries that the upper Starfleets may have, we did meet a new character this episode, and I love her. Her name is Carol Kane, and she is a Lithaniite, if I'm saying it correctly. If I'm incorrectly saying it, I apologize. And I like her specifically for the fact that she was able to call out what the Enterprise was doing from the get-go. She's like, and it goes to show like that is definitely a plan that Spock created, because Spock is such a by the book person sometimes. Even when he's breaking the rules, he's like a by the book person. And she's like, I know what an actual issue would be. I was a teacher in Starfleet. He's like, oh, I was not aware. And this is a textbook way of doing like a warp core failure. And you can just see in everyone's face, oh crap. Like, but instead of turning them in and instead of telling them to stop, she's like, well, whatever you're about to do, we should probably do it better and do it soon before they start to wonder what's going on. And she has them like leak I think it was ion, some type of ion, and so that way the space dock would be like, hey, back up, get up, like automatically decouple, so like don't let this like hit the space docking. Like, she was really smart and in a smart, underhanded way. And we find out that she has not been on a Starfleet ship in over 100 years. And it's a long, long story. A story that maybe Spock's mother might know.
Yes.
It's very interesting. What did you think of her character?
I recognize her character, first of all, from Princess Bride. And I thought, oh my goodness, Carol Kane has not aged a day since that. So she was in Princess Bride. She was in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So it's nice.
Oh, I love her in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Yes.
Yeah, to see actresses as they age continue to be involved in the craft. And her character, as witty as it is, reminded me of like what an older Tilly would be, like observing and then be a little bit like, okay, in a little smart aleck kind of way, but like prove that she's right. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm hoping that maybe we'll see a lot more of her as she joins the Enterprise. And then maybe she's part of the Academy again in the future, because if her species lives for a long time, she could continue to like persist into the new Star Trek Academy series, and she must have a lot of knowledge. And so like that's interesting to me, what it would be like to not like fear death like Pike. Like the issues that Pike has. And so I'm intrigued by that, and also Amanda, because I really like Amanda and her love for her son Spock and everything that she wants to do for him. So it's interesting to see that connection. So basically, it's like she trusts Spock because Spock is a friend of her son. So that kind of hookup kind of thing, I thought was cute.
And it's also like interesting because something she said made me like wonder, how did she get away with it? Because she said it's been 100 years since she was on a ship, but the first person she's told about who she was Spock's mom. So that makes me wonder, did you also lie on your did you lie on your application to Starfleet? Like like, or did you tell them and she was your first friend you confided in? Because when she said that, I was just like, oh, well, your words and stories are not adding up to what might be in your application. So let's review. Please go into detail. We need a little more detail about.
Yes,
Did you
I
lie,
agree with
or are you
you.
considered a different version of human? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I would love that backstory. Also, for the new Trekkies out there, if you're interested in learning more about Amanda, watch Star Trek, the original series. Amanda's featured, I think, in like 3 episodes there. And then Star Trek Discovery Season 2, there's quite a bit about Spock and Amanda Michael's journey together and family bonding.
Family time. So back to Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel. As these like 2 people have wrecked the Klingons on this ship, they send out a distress beacon on the transponder signal that says Enterprise, destroy the ship. And their first initial reaction is they're probably going to go down with this ship, but they have to make sure that this ship does not make it out off this planet, because if they were to and they attack the Klingon ship, it would reignite the war, which is what this fraction wants. Spock is very much caught between a rock and a hard place, because we're seeing that he has some type of feelings for Nurse Chapel. And now he's also dealing with all the stress of actually feeling his actual emotions that he's learned to repress for so long. And there's also a Klingon battleship just right a jump, skip, hop away that they're hiding from. So there's a lot going on, and he has a very short amount of time to figure out the right moves to make in an unsanctioned mission, which is also adding extra stress to what he's going through. He's just a little ball of stress. Where's his little heart? He needs his little heart. But Dr. Mbenga says they can basically just jettison off the ship through the airlock, but they have no EV suits. But he says they have a minute before they will completely die, and he literally means 60 seconds. And so, in the way of TV, they cut back and forth between them making the decision of jumping out of the airlock and Spock trying to decide to fire the torpedoes, because everyone knows he's going to kill the people if they do. And we get to see Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga like share this intense look. And sometimes trauma bonds you in a way that is unexplainable. Like, you start to feel something because you go through something so either great or horrible with someone. And I definitely saw some looks of emotions between Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel. And it very well could be, we might die, so I'm so sad, I don't know what to say looks. And it could be, I'm seeing you in a whole new light type looks. Okay, Moneca just shook her head no. So, what was your thoughts about that?
I think the 2 of them had some adventures together in the Klingon War. And that was really featured in the very beginning of Discovery. And they had some battles together and trust each other immensely. And I don't think it's a love interest. I think it's just like they have a really good friendship partnership, and they're like, we're in it together. We're not just going to use this one helmet and this one bodysuit. We're going to see how we can share it together. He was like, but and he said, trust me, basically. You're going to go become like unconscious in 15 seconds. It's not going to be painful for you, but you're going to live, you're going to survive. And by golly, he was right, because Spock to the rescue.
And we see Spock have a little bit of like an emotional reunion. It was like, you cannot die. I waited. And it was like, again, it was almost the emotion of, is this a captain afraid that he waited too long to kill he killed his crew? Or is it, I can't lose you, boo. I just realized I liked you. So
I was thinking, because he said, you cannot die, he was more thinking back to his conversation with Pike because Pike told him about the future. And so he was thinking, I know you're not going to die because that's not part of the path. So, because he said basically, you do not die. You do not die. He said that like 3 times. So, I don't know. That's my theory.
I saw it more as he would not be able to live with that decision if she did. Because we see that Dr. Omega has his eyes open. He's staring at Nurse Chapel, and like, okay, I need her to be alive as well, you know? And Spock, with feeling all these emotions, is like, you can't die, because he waited so long to fire, like into the very last possible moment. And it was like, I did all of this to save you, to like not, so I didn't kill you. You can't die. I felt it was more of like, he just could not, he couldn't lose her.
Yeah, I was surprised that we saw 2 emotional moments from Spock, both when she beamed on board, both of them, M'Benga and Chapel beamed on board, and he rushed there. And I didn't see any other people from sickbay rush there, but he was there. And then later on, there was a scene where Nurse Chapel was recovering, and then it looked like he was a little teary-eyed.
Yes, he was.
Showing emotion. Vulcan showing an un-Vulcan thing to do.
And I have to say, I know I am still team T'Pring, because I loved her from season 1. And to see, so now I need her to come back so I can see how Spock interacts with her now that he's feeling his emotions. Because we know Spock cares about her. We know Spock loves T'Pring in their Vulcan way. So I need to see how he reacts with her, because I am still team T'Pring. Even though you can just like melt, you can cook an egg on the heat that's going off between Spock and Nurse Chapel. But lust is not everything. It's not. It's not love. So we're going to see what happens.
Right. And we also know that Nurse Chapel has commitment issues. We learned that last season. Mm-hmm. And she admitted to M'Benga at the very beginning of the episode that she's considering applying for another position, I think, just to help ease the stress. She knows that she's more into Spock than he's into her. So, and that is it's a tough situation, tough working environment. But now I'm starting to get a little doubt. I also don't want the 2 of them together, but now I'm starting to feel as though maybe Spock has more feelings than what I previously thought.
And then also, we see that Spock has he drinks with the Klingons after he's able to talk them down and like prove to them that they were stopping a war, not trying to incite a war, not trying to trick the Klingons, that he was trying to do everything in his power to make sure peace remained. And he's drinking blood wine, and they say the Vulcan that doesn't do Vulcan things. And it's very interesting because Spock doesn't share with them that he's actually half human. So he's not fully a Vulcan who doesn't do Vulcan things. He's a half Vulcan, half human who's letting his human side run the show for a little bit. Because I will say this, Vulcans may not lie, but Spock is able to, because he is half human. And so regardless of the fact that he has not, does not mean he is not able to lie.
Right, because we've experienced one of his lies when he kissed Nurse Chapel. Yeah, in one of the episodes last season, just to throw off, I think it was like a hijacker or something like that. Yeah. So
it's like, he can lie, but they don't know that. And in the very end, we see that he is basically let off the hook from Starfleet. And when you first watch it, before you know the end scene, you're just like, are you serious? Like, I understand, like, he stopped the war from starting, but why? And then then he goes in to say, basically, the only reason he was not punished is because they need him. So they can't. And so it basically goes to show, though, if they did not need him coming up, that he would have been punished. So I do feel a little bit better that there would have been a punishment. But Spock it's like this time the ends actually justified the means. Like what he did, he didn't hurt anyone, he didn't lie to anyone, he didn't like deceive anyone, he didn't like, he literally just, all he did was take the ship, go save someone, stop an insurrection. Like he didn't have to really manipulate, quote unquote, anyone in Starfleet. So like this time the ends sort of actually justified the means, and no one else was actually hurt, and only positives came from this mission. So it's like, okay, I can see how it wouldn't be like a too terrible punishment, but there should have been a punishment. But it's like, yeah, we're only not punishing you because we need you, not because we don't think you're wrong, but because the Gorn are about to hit the Gorn's about to hit the fan, and we're gonna need every capable hand on deck. That is why you're not in trouble. And it's like goes back to how Michael was released because they needed her, not because they didn't think what she did was wrong. And then again, always down the hill, it was not her fault. Like if they need you, they'll just let your insubordination slide for a moment.
So this whole time, I was thinking, Pike's only going to be gone for 3 days, right? And I know he's out on personal leave, but how about run this by him? Just a quick chat, ask his perspective, like asking your boss, about this mission. Because what if it was a trap? Or what if they needed the Enterprise for another mission? So I have concerns there. And I know I'm diving in deeper, but that's an issue.
Yeah. Question on that issue. I'm gonna be devil's advocate real quick.
Yeah.
Do you really think Pike wouldn't have told him not to go?
Right, but at least though you have, I think, reassurance from the ship's captain compared to an acting captain for 3 days, and he's already stressed and nervous about decisions going into this. Have some reassurance, and worst case scenario, you're like, well, I ran it by my boss and he approved it. So
because the admiral still said no, so it's just like,
right. But hey, I tried. I reached out to my so that, and then I was thinking, wow, so the Federation doesn't keep track of their ships because no one followed the Enterprise to this location. So I wonder, I have concerns about those aspects of the storyline. I'm glad though that no one got hurt, because I was also thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want Spock to start a Klingon war. His sister just started a Klingon war. Like this is too ironic here for this situation. Now he was able to prevent one. Great. There's this, but the end is not, I don't think this is going to be the end. I think we're going to see more Klingons. And the end of the episode also led me to believe like it's to be continued with the Gorn. So there's going to be more underlining story that's going to reach out from here. And we're going to need probably Lyon to help us with that.
And one thing, was it just me, or did the Klingons look different in this show than they did in Discovery?
Yes.
They look more humanoid. Like that was one thing that was very interesting. Like they looked more humanoid in or it could be because they grew out their hair, and then like in Discovery they didn't grow out their hair.
Right. They don't grow their hair in times of war.
Yeah.
Right. So they keep their hair cut. But then also this should be more like, I guess, leading into the original series. So I do like the look of these Klingons.
Yeah, these Klingons look more like the ones the ones we grew up with. But it was just very interesting because even in Discovery, when they did grow their hair, they didn't look like this. So I was very sort of like shocked at like, oh, they look a lot different in such a short amount of time. So
yes. And I think there's like 7 factions. So there's different types of Klingons. I mean, because we realized that there's like albino Klingons and there's some that look a lot different than others. So they'll think that the Federation should have I don't know, an outpost near there, or should at least be able to scan that radar and know where all their ships are at any given time.
Yeah, it was an interesting episode. Not bad. It was great. It was awesome. Any final thoughts before we near the end of it?
Yeah, so at the end of the episode, they featured a dedication to Nichelle Nichols, and because this entire episode was dedicated to her, and I thought that that was well deserved, and I think it was lovely, and I'm glad that they did that. I'm also hope that we learn a little bit more about M'Benga and Chapel's backstory, because they took a green liquid with them that makes me think it's a steroid that boosts their energy levels. And so that also makes me wonder a little bit about ethics and if they used that in the past for another Klingon war, because they chose to bring that along instead of their phasers. So they must trust that green mysterious liquid there. So I would love to see an episode with a flashback for to learn more about really their journeys together with that.
I am looking forward to Pike's reaction to them still in the ship. Part of me, to go back to what you said about why didn't he call him, part of me would be like, he'll say, like, why didn't you call me? I could have came back and we could have went together. Like, I firmly believe Pike would have like supported the mission in all aspects. So I really would like want to see his reaction to it. And then I want to see more of Carol Kane's character. I don't think I remember how they said her name, but it's Pelia. That's her character's name on the show. I'm looking forward to see how she fits in to the Enterprise crew. And I'm liking again more of Uhura's sureness of herself, and see where that comes, because I really did love Uhura, and last season left me a little bit lacking. So I'm glad she is filling that void. Anything else?
No, this is going to be an exciting twist of events with all of this. It can go in many different directions, which I like, and there's a lot of drama. So, yeah.
We love other people's drama, not ours, other people's.
Exactly.
But as always, I'm Andrea.
I'm Moneca.
And live long and prosper.